All right, hello there. Welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. I want to come on here for just a few minutes and share my thoughts on a recent release in the Criterion Collection on 4K Ultra HD. This is my first time watching this film, and I am super happy that I had a chance to check out Spine number 58 that just got an upgrade to 4K Ultra HD from what I believe was a previous DVD in the collection. And this is Peeping Tom from Michael Powell. This is Michael Powell, who is part of the powerhouse duo from the 1940s and 1950s, maybe even back to the 1930s, the powerhouse duo of Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger that gave us a number of titles and films from that period, many of which are in the Criterion Collection that I have a stack of in my collection right here. So you have, of course, Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, A Matter of Life and Death, Black Narcissus, The Red Shoes, The Tales of Hoffman. These are just 5 of the titles that Michael Powell and Emmerich Pressburger teamed up on and gave us in the 1940s and 1950s. So today I'm going to talk about the film that Michael Powell put out in 1960 after his break, for whatever reason, from Emmerich Pressburger. He presented a film called Peeping Tom, and this is a pretty interesting film because this film managed to basically effectively destroy the man's career in Britain. But it is a film that in recent years has gained quite a bit of attention over the last few decades, as my wife here is staring at me recording this. But let me pause there. All right, let me resume. But anyway, sometimes you just have to roll with these things. But this is a film that Michael Powell put out in 1960. And it is after his break from Emmerich Pressburger. And this film managed to effectively destroy Michael Powell's career in England. It was reviled by critics. It was very controversial at the time that it came out. And he basically had to go to Australia to get any work after this film came out. But it is a really fascinating subject matter that this film covers. It covers this gentleman here, Mark Lewis, who is a young man who basically is into filmmaking. He is in the film business. He is a focus puller. He is part of different productions for different movies by day. And then by night, he is going around filming himself killing people. So it's a very bizarre young man with a very interesting past having to do with the way his father raised him. And that's part of the backstory of his character. But it's just a fascinating film of psychological terror and a psychological crime thriller. But in the recent decades, the last 30 years or so, this film has really regained a lot of the recognition that it should have gotten initially, and is now widely reviewed as a masterpiece from Michael Powell. A large part of that is due to Martin Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker putting the work to restore this film and bringing it to the consciousness of the public. And of course, Michael Powell was the husband of Thelma Schoonmaker. Thelma Schoonmaker, the longtime editor of Martin Scorsese, is the widow of Michael Powell, the director of this film. But let me take a moment to read the back of this Criterion case. It says, having brought British cinema into exalted realms of fantasy and imagination with all of these wonderful films here, Michael Powell took a dark detour into obsession, voyeurism, and violence with this groundbreaking meta-cinematic investigation into the mechanics of fear. Armed with his killer camera, photographer and filmmaker Mark Lewis, played by Carl Boehm, unleashes the traumas of his childhood by murdering women and recording their deaths until he falls for his downstairs neighbor. This is a neighbor that lived in the house that he is living in, and finds himself struggling against his dark compulsions. Received with revulsion upon his release, only to be reclaimed as a masterpiece, the endlessly analyzed and still shocking Peeping Tom dares viewers to confront their own relationship to the violence on screen. So that, as always, Criterion does an excellent job, giving a summation of these titles, and that beautifully encapsulates what this film is about. It really talks about the life and the psychology and the psychosis of Mark Lewis, who he's involved in the film industry, which this is another one of those films that shows the movie making process. Mark Lewis is a focus puller on different movie productions. So you see that whole behind the scenes aspect of things of making movies. He does that by day. That's his day job. And then at night, he is going around filming himself committing these murders. And it is a fascinating, fascinating tale. There's a nice and interesting story around the background of his growing up and his father, his influence on him that heavily plays into the narrative of this film and adds to what's driving the motivations of Mark Lewis in this movie. And it's just a fascinating psychological study to watch. This film, as I mentioned before, was shocking when it came out. It basically ruined Michael Powell's career in England, but in the last few decades, it has since gained the recognition that it so richly deserves, and it is now considered a masterpiece. You look on the inside of this case, you'll see here Peeping Tom, 2 discs. You get a 4K Ultra HD, you get a Blu-ray disc. You have this insert that has a wonderful essay called He Has His Father's Eyes by Megan Abbott that I highly recommend reading. It is so, so good. On the back, you have some information about the restoration, and I'm about to address that now. But it says that Peeping Tom is presented. It is presented. Peeping Tom is presented in the aspect ratio of 1.66 to 1. This new digital master was created from the 35 millimeter original Eastman color negative, which was scanned in 6K resolution. 6K resolution at Silver Salt Restoration Limited in London and restored in 4K at Cinerec Inc. in New York. The original monaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35 millimeter optical track negative and a 35 millimeter track positive print by the BFI National Archive in London. This feature is presented in Dolby Vision HDR, high dynamic range on the 4K, and SDR on the Blu-ray. So let's just go ahead and talk about the 4K picture quality on this 4K disc. It is absolutely stunning. This is a film that was shot in Eastman color, Kodak film. And this restoration job that was headed by Martin Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker. Thelma Schoonmaker is the longtime editor of Martin Scorsese. She's edited most of his films. And she's also the widow of Michael Powell, who directed this movie, Peeping Tom. So they put a lot of love and attention and care into properly restoring this film, and it absolutely shows in the image. This is an absolutely stunningly beautiful, beautiful Criterion 4K. I mean, 4K period. The picture just looks absolutely phenomenal. It's clean. The colors, really are just beautifully represented. They're not overly vivid, but they are definitely beautifully presented and rich and luscious. It is a film that's over 60 years old, but it just has that, look of being a film that you won't mistake for being a modernly shot film today, but it is an absolutely beautiful looking film that looks brand new, as if it was shot yesterday, but doesn't look like it was shot yesterday in terms of looking like a modern film. It looks the way the film was intended to look, perfectly cleaned up, beautifully rendered, beautiful depth and clarity in the image. I simply cannot say enough about how absolutely beautiful this film looks on 4K Ultra HD. The fact that they scanned it in 6K and then downsampled it to put it on a 4K disc, you have tremendous detail, depth, clarity, definition. The colors are absolutely beautiful. It just looks great. In the darker scenes and the lighter scenes, you just have nice detail and definition. And I was just sitting there watching this film and thinking to myself, wow, this is an over 60-year-old film, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. So this is one of the best looking catalog 4Ks that I have ever seen. I would put this up there with My Fair Lady. I would put it up there with that film from, I believe, the mid 1960s. It is an absolutely stunning presentation on 4K Ultra HD, and I simply cannot say enough about it. It is worth the price of admission alone just to see this beautiful picture from 1960 in 4K, beautifully restored. Great work by the Film Foundation, Martin Scorsese, Thelma Schoonmaker, their supervisory work, and their whole team in doing an amazing job of bringing this film to life for modern audiences on 4K Ultra HD. You have my love. Great work. So as far as the audio is just fine, beautifully restored as well. But I think the standout is just how beautiful this film looks on 4K. So enough rambling on that. I could go all day on how beautiful it looks. In terms of the special features, you do get a couple of nice audio commentaries on here. One from the film historian Ian Christie and one from film scholar Laura Mulvey, which is very good. You have a nice introduction by Martin Scorsese and also an interview with editor Thelma Schoonmaker. That's very good. You get a documentary about the film's history that features Schoonmaker, Scorsese, and the actor Carl Boehm, who played Mark Lewis in this film. And then you get a documentary about screenwriter Leo Marx. And also you get a program on the film's restoration, which whenever they do, a restoration demonstration for these films, I always enjoy seeing that because it just gives you an appreciation for the work that went into making this beautiful presentation that they're giving us here on this disc. So you have that essay by author Megan Abbott. This is just a fantastic edition all the way around that has my highest recommendation. Definitely consider picking up Peeping Tom on the next 50% off sale. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Peeping Tom, the 4K release from the Criterion Collection. Let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about this film? Have you seen it? Are you looking forward to picking up this film in an upcoming 50% off sale? Let me know your thoughts about that and all things Criterion and all things 4K Blu-ray and Blu-rays as well. Let me know all that in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.